Hey guys, Claire here. In today's video, we're going to talk about all things Harry and Meghan. Now, before we get started, we've recently found out that this year's Sant Ballet Polo Cup match is going to be held in Singapore, and we also found out that Macklemore will be performing at this year's Invictus Games. So those are two really fun things to look forward to. Now, there was an article by, Grazia UK that really touched on the latest smear campaign against Meghan Markle. And it's interesting to see a lot of people openly talking about this latest smear campaign and calling it for what it is.
Do you know that Meghan Markle's Spotify deal got canceled? You know, I heard about it actually, and you know the gag of it all. Nobody made a big issue when the Obamas lost their podcast, with Spotify, and you know, they're saying it's because it was a flop. Didn't it beat Joe Rogan at some point?
Yeah, at some point.
So let me say this. You know, every time I hear Meghan Markle's name, I've developed this habit to hop on international news. Okay,
smart.
So when I hopped on international news, I'm like, what's going on in the UK?
Yeah.
And I noticed that they had some kind of a trooping of the color, and I'm like, how many people showed up?
Compared to last year.
Not that much people showed up. So it looks like they got problems they're trying to mask with Meghan Markle's name. Stop it.
Now that there are some theories about why this is currently happening, and some theorize that it's the lack of interest shown in the British royal family that is resulting in them trying to use Meghan's name in particular as a distraction. So you don't really talk about the waning lack of interest in the current monarch and his wife. So, let's resort to attacking Meghan. And I can see that to a certain degree. We had the trooping of the color. And if you really look at the images of the crowds of the latest, or Charles's first as the current monarch, compared to the crowds for the other trooping of the colors under the reign of Queen Elizabeth, well, it's a little lacking. It's very lackluster. Even articles written about the balcony looking very sparse and tragic. So I get that. Here in the US, and I don't know for other places worldwide, we don't really see heavy talk about this year's trooping of the color and all of those things that is involved with this situation. It's mostly the UK media and royalists online, but nobody really cares about it as much. And since the crowds were small, I'm guessing there's a lot of people in the UK that don't care about it as much as the tabloids would have us believe. The other theory as to why there is this latest smear campaign against Meghan is Prince Harry's court case. Now, we're not really hearing too much people talking about the court case because Harry is no longer in attendance. But for those of you who have been keeping up, there has been a lot of really unsettling testimony. And one of the names that keeps coming up throughout all of these different testimonies is Piers Morgan. You have former editors and writers saying that Piers would tell people, this is how you hack phones. Piers will just show up and inject different stories into their articles, just out of the blue, with information that they're like, well, how did he get it? So there's a lot of information that zeroes in on Piers Morgan. And I think that is where this current smear campaign comes from.
When they first came out, mobile phones, journalists found out that if the celebrity hadn't changed their PIN code,
you can access their voicemail.
You can access their voicemail just by tapping a number. Now, are you really telling me that journalists aren't going to do that?
Yeah.
If they know they can ring up Charlotte Church's mobile phone, listen to all her messages, right? Now, all you have to do, and I know it's hard because celebrities don't like doing anything for themselves, is actually change your security number.
Yeah, I've changed my security number.
And now you don't have
the UK tabloids and their buddies all sort of circling the wagon and using their time-honored tradition of slagging off of Meghan in order to distract from it. And there's so much talk about Piers that the judge even wondered, well, he has a lot to say outside of the courtroom. Why isn't he in the court giving testimony? I don't know why the judge hasn't called him into court in order to give testimony. because clearly he was up to no good. So we'll see how that plays out. But I genuinely feel like this whole Spotify situation and Kelly Osbourne and these like latest rounds of nonsense stories is just a way to distract from Piers and the tabloids' shady dealings. Now, when it comes to the Spotify situation, we know that anything that has to do with Harry and Meghan is going to be created into this big never-ending vortex of articles and interviews and everybody giving their 2 cents in order to get 15 minutes of attention. But here's the thing, Spotify has been in trouble for a while. Spotify has been paying big bucks to a lot of top tier talent, people like the Obamas, people like Harry and Meghan, Kim Kardashian, and there's another woman, I can't remember her name, but also Ava, is it DuVernay? Forgive me if I mispronounce her name. But top tier talent, you're throwing all of this money at them, you're signing these contracts, but with no solid idea of the type of content that you're going to create. It was just poorly ran. And earlier this year, one of their top execs in the podcasting sector had quit. So there's a lot of moving parts within the Spotify podcast zeitgeist. There was another top podcaster, oh my god, I can't remember her name, but when I'm editing the video, I'll try to add her name and photo. She left, the Obamas left, and the Spotify executive left. There's just like a lot of little things going on that was giving red flags. But you know what, the UK media, it's all about distraction and misinformation, so they made the whole Spotify thing a huge thing. Then you have the exec that made his comments who seem very bent out of shape, particularly towards Prince Harry. I think he's in over his head and they're hemorrhaging money and hemorrhaging top tier talent, and they were really banking on Harry and Meghan sticking around. And clearly that's not the case. So, he's big mad. Oh well. So that story, came and went, and then they started creating this new story about Meghan not interviewing her guests, even though we have seen many of the guests post on social media, post-interview for archetypes, a lot of them in photos with Meghan. So again, like the people who haven't been paying attention or the people who just love a steady supply of lies when it comes to Meghan is like bought into that. But everybody else knows that a very quick Google search could have shown you that that's not true. And if you actually had listened to Archetypes, you would know that there is 2 different sets of interviews done. You have the main guests, which is the interviews that Meghan did, all of those. But then you would have little context from people in their respective fields, giving you a little deeper insight into the topic of the week. And those interviews were mostly conducted by other producers, which is a common practice. Again, it's why they decide to make this a big deal. Well, we know why, but yeah, those are the facts. I mean, Andy did an interview, and even Andy looked a little like surprised by this rumor and sort of put it to rest. And of course, the media is like, oh, Andy defends Harry and Meghan. He's not defending them. He's just saying your rumor is stupid. And it's not true.
There was this rumor going around that Meghan didn't conduct her own podcast interviews. I know that you sat down for an interview on the podcast. Did you actually speak with her?
Of course I did. And she definitely did. And that's an insane rumor.
Right, I know.
Her podcast is conversations with people. How would she not have? Of course she did.
I know there was these rumors that they said that they edited, like a producer did the interviews and they edited her.
Absolutely not. And she was quite well researched and well informed and thoughtful.
Now, this week we also saw the ultimate Nepo baby, Kelly Osbourne, take shots at Prince Harry. And she really should have just sat there wherever she was, because nobody was checking for her anyway. But she should have stayed wherever she was and stayed quiet. But, she decided to come out and defend or attack Prince Harry, in my mind, in defense of her buddy, Piers Morgan. Remember, her mother's buddy as well. But Kelly decided to say, oh, Harry's talking about this, and, he's a whiner, and all of these things. But here's the thing. The reaction on social media, I think, was not what she anticipated, because a lot of people were like, girl, we don't care what you have to say. Why do you think we care what Kelly Osbourne has to say? The only people who were really eating that up were royalists. But a lot of people just really didn't care, or a lot of people were calling out the fact that, well, you're saying Harry's a whiner for talking about his experience living in a very toxic family, growing up in the public eye, mental health issues. But here's the thing, Kelly, you have done the same thing. I mean, people found out about you because your father is Ozzy Osbourne, and because you guys did that TV show. And after the TV show, you went on The View. And almost every time you open your mouth, you're either passing judgment on other people, or you're moaning and groaning about your issues, which also over the years included talking about your mental health issues, talking about growing up in a toxic family dynamic, complaining that the British press would fat shame you. So, pot calling the kettle black, maybe? But a lot of people were on her throat about the comment that she had made on The View. And if you don't know, I'm going to insert a little clip of it.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump? Oh, that's no.
And after that comment about Latinos and cleaning the toilets, nobody's trying to hear what you have to say, Kelly. Kelly and her mom are the type of women who pretend to be really cool with marginalized people. But then you sit down and you listen to them talk long enough, and you realize that they're really not allies at all. They're not. Note the whole situation with Sharon talking in this sort of disrespectful way to her black coworker while she's defending Piers Morgan. That really highlighted a part of her personality that she had kept hidden for a long time, because before, I don't know about you guys, but Sharon just always looked like she's kind of laid back and she's cool with everybody. But you see a different side of her, just like with Kelly, who was on The View and she got real comfortable, too comfortable, and made that comment about Latinos. But also, Kelly is like the ultimate Nepo baby. She sort of reminds me of Meghan, Do You Know Who My Daddy Is? McCain. I don't have a problem with Nepo babies at all. I don't like Nepo babies who pretend that they don't have a leg up over the rest because of who their parents are, because of the family that they come from. So that's one type of Nepo baby that I'm not fond of. But the other, which is like the Kelly and Meghan McCains of the world, are those who grow up extremely privileged with a lot of resources at their disposal. And all they do is sit around taking up these opportunities that we're giving to them, again, not on their own merit, not because they're particularly smart or engaging, but because of who their fathers are. And they sit around judging people, and they never give back anything or do anything of worth, Did you serve your country? I mean, you could say that Harry is the ultimate Nepo baby as well, but guess what? He served his country for 10 years. And also, past that, he does a lot of incredible work with the Invictus Games and with veterans. So he does a lot of things with the resources at his disposal. People like Kelly Osbourne and Meghan McCain, they don't. So nobody's really willing to listen to you slag off of someone who is simply telling their story in a way that you have done for years. So she really didn't get the reaction that she was hoping for. But, you should have just mind your business, girl.
I'm kind of surprised anyone is surprised that Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan are deciding to split amicably from Spotify from her Archetypes podcast right now. Bring up this lovely couple. It is not the first time that a high-profile political, or in their case, royal couple, has decided to cut ties with Spotify. And a lot of it is because they have these very exclusive deals with Spotify that don't necessarily always align with people. And I know a lot of people are going back to the Joe Rogan podcast, how he was giving out misinformation, and a lot of people talked out against that. And that's part of the rumored reason why Harry and Meghan have taken a step back, because they just don't agree with part of what they allow on their podcast from Spotify. And let's not forget that this is an award-winning podcast. Remember that Meghan was receiving an award when everything happened with the overbearing paparazzi in New York. Oh my gosh, she looks glowing right here. But let's also not forget she has new management. With new management comes new opportunities, and maybe they're looking to expand. So that's my thought.
Meghan and Harry leaving Spotify is a non-story. It should never have made it out of the trades. It's sort of boilerplate, contract ending shit that no one outside of the industry should care about. Place this with any other podcaster. Do you care? Did you care that Roman Mars left the studio he founded and went to Vox? No, you don't. You didn't. You don't. You probably didn't even know that. Those articles are communicating 3 important pieces of information, and Meghan and Harry are the least important. In order, they're Spotify is hemorrhaging big talent. They're restructuring, and Meghan and Harry are free to shop around their products. And those pieces of information are only important to executives and studio heads and people who rep other people. It doesn't matter to the rest of us. We should not and don't need to care. If you are interested in entertainment news and what's happening with studios and podcasts, those first 2 pieces of information tell a very interesting story of what's going on at Spotify. They have become an incubator for big talent to test out ideas in a safe environment, build an audience, build momentum, build interest, and then take that idea, take that podcast to a bigger audience, to a bigger studio, to a more public forum. This is not making them the money that they thought it was. It's not bringing in subscribers. It's not keeping that talent in-house. They are losing that after, a year, a season of a podcast. And they're panicking. They are downsizing, and they're panicking, and they're restructuring, which means a lot more smaller talent is also going to start leaving, or is maybe looking to leave and would love an opportunity to maybe move to a bigger audience, to expand their pool. And that's probably going to be very interesting for networks like Fox and Amazon, because that talent is cheaper and they can make more money off of that. Spotify didn't and probably shouldn't have said anything other than we have mutually decided to part ways. There was no reason to throw them under the bus other than to deflect blame off of them and get the attention off of Spotify. People who read those trades know how to read between the lines. They know how to see when another company is not doing well, and they know how to take advantage of that. Yeah, Spotify's terrified right now, and they probably should be.
I've been seeing a lot of comments like this online, and while I certainly agree that governments across the globe do this to try and distract the general public from something they don't want to see, I don't think that's the case in this situation, at least not fully. I think the far more simpler explanation is that they're just trying to ruin the Sussex brand. They want to continue creating a lot of noise, a lot of distractions, pardon this, but fake news to try to get companies not to work with Harry and Meghan. And they're not even really trying to hide it anymore. This incredibly cringeworthy tweet I saw yesterday just lays all their cards on the table. The worst is them using a very frail Queen Elizabeth and their hate propaganda. And if you're asking yourself, why does it feel particularly bad right now? It's because the tide has started to turn for Harry and Meghan, at least in America. Tina Brown said it a couple months ago. She lives in America. Jack Royston, who works for Newsweek, was just on Good Morning Britain to say just that. Most Americans think that Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet should have their titles, and most Americans took their car chase in New York seriously, despite other outlets trying to undermine them or make light of what happened. And that brings us back to, why does it feel as bad as it did in 2020 or 2021 when they just left? They're just trying to strike while the iron's hot. They're trying to use this Spotify thing to push a narrative. Because let's be real, none of what they're doing would be a big deal if their names weren't Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The cracks in Spotify's business model have been there for a very long time. This article is a full 6 months before Harry and Meghan joined Spotify. Or that an Oscar-nominated director left Spotify before any of her shows even aired. Or that the former president of the United States left Spotify. But none of that matters because hating Meghan Markle is a billion-dollar industry. Just mentioning Meghan Markle's name is guaranteed to get you clicks, and it's guaranteed to get your name in the papers. Well, let me just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So these British media companies make up a lie that Harry and Meghan might be the face of Dior. A spokesperson for them says no, that's not true. And now royalists are saying that Meghan made this up herself to go on an ego trip? You people are insane. Insane. Prince Harry did say the British media does not report the news, they create the news. We saw it with the South Park episode where they made up a rumor that Harry and Meghan were gonna sue, and then a ton of places started picking it up like that was truth.
So this hot mess, who nobody gives a rat's ass about, decided that she needed a little relevance, so she decided to attack Prince Harry. So on a podcast, she went ahead on the attack and called Harry, and also whining and that he's not the only person who has mental health problems. So of course, I put my petty on and had to respond to that. So the last time Kelly Osbourne was in any way relevant, she was being called out for being a... She said, quote, "If you get rid of all the immigrants, who's going to clean your bathrooms?" End quote. And of course, she got fired for that. When you get famous for whining about your rich girl problems on an MTV show, that the only reason why you even had a part there was because of who your father is, you can be throwing stones, girl. Prince Harry doesn't even register you. The only reason why we're even talking about you is because you mentioned his name. So enjoy your 15 seconds of relevance.
One of the hardest things about being the outsider in your family is that you're the last person anyone will listen to. If you've been labeled the scapegoat or the family black sheep, it can feel like no matter what you say, you're dismissed. And it's so painful because you're probably one of the first ones to get therapy, learn how to heal, explore the world, and gather valuable tools that other family members could really use. I have a suggestion for you if you're in this situation. Create the best life you can for yourself. Take everything you've learned and make your life amazing. Do things your way. Find what lights you up and actually make it happen, because that's the thing that you have the most control over. No one else needs to give you permission to do this. No one needs to understand you to do this. It would be nice if they did, but that's not in your control. In fact, many folks struggle for years trying to find that secret key that unlocks the conversation they want to have with their family, and it just never comes. But I will say this, I have seen it many times that when the outsider creates a better life, some family members start to come out of the woodwork. You seem like you're doing great. How'd you do that? They might ask. Of course, some will never get there, but the ones that do start to open up now offer a space where you can be heard in the way that you had been hoping for all along.
I'm just scrolling through Twitter, and I don't normally have a look at negative stuff on Twitter about Meghan and Harry because there's just so much, but I came across Angela Levin, and I thought it was a parody account at first, but it is her. So I was like, what's she talking about on Twitter? What could it be? Fancy that. So Harry and Meghan are not going to be models for Dior. Oh well, at least it made it to every paper. But because of people like you, Angela. The irony here is outstanding. How many more days are we going to hear about Partygate when there are so many serious, tough areas of life that need to be tackled? Is it an avoidance trick? Literally 2 hours earlier, Harry wore a Dior suit at the coronation and Dior shirt at the court case, so he might join Meghan in the huge financial deal. How low can you go? How low can you go, Angela? I thought we were talking about serious issues that need to be tackled. If Meghan becomes Duchess Dior, she won't want a Mona around her. Like you, Angela. I guess this was her reacting to the Spotify news. A significant crossroad for Harry and Meghan. Ouch. Back in my slot with Dan Wood and GB News this evening. What am I going to say next? Do wait and see. I did enjoy the comments here. Hashtag Angela Levin is a liar. Nothing much as normal. Definition of bullying? Well, it's you and Dan, so bullying as usual. No thanks, always the same. Probably something totally made up. You two were made for each other. Nobody cares what conjecture or hatred either of you spout. Angela and Dan, why don't you saturate the airways with stories about the Middletons' bankruptcy? Kate's parents, along with her brother James, have all filed for bankruptcy and left creditors with millions in debt. Interesting. Are you going to apologise for the lies you spread out, Netflix liar? Has Netflix cancelled Harry's Invictus Games documentary? Angela, And to top it off, it is wonderful to be part of GB News and be able to say what you really feel. Makeup lies, hatred, right-wing, nastiness. I wish the station a very happy second birthday with many more to come. Yes, because they're paying you. They're paying you, Angela.
Check. Drug abuse, check. Minor convictions and lives in LA, check and check. I couldn't agree with you more on this. The thing about Kelly Osbourne, Sharon Osbourne, Meghan Kelly, and the Rockefeller chick, they've never been relevant. And of course they had to use Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's name to even get their name out there, because there's some people that didn't even know nothing of who Kelly Osbourne was. There's people that have never even heard of the Rockefeller chick. I surely didn't even know he even had a granddaughter. So with that said, Sharon Osbourne, she hasn't been relevant for a very long time. There's so many people that choose to use Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's name just to stay talked about. For their 15 minutes, for their 5 minutes, or for whatever. Again, here they are in their little, living their best life in their Montecito mansion, doing good for people, doing their humanitarian work, and they still get shamed and shit about that. The other day, Meghan Markle was caught walking, hiking, whatever. She was out doing her thing, and obviously the paparazzi's got pictures of her. I believe it was GB News and some other UK media trash people wanted to sit there saying, oh, Meghan Markle out walking alone, looking very depressed or something, no makeup on, because Spotify canceled her. Obviously we know the story about Spotify, so I'm not even gonna go into that part with you guys, but to even call out why she had no makeup on, like a woman has to wear makeup every day of their life. Come on, people, come on. She's beautiful without it. She doesn't need it. So I don't even know why they even had to speak about that. Again, they have to use Meghan's name just to get clicks. They have to use Harry's name just to get clicks. This is a thing that they do. Instead of talking something positive about them, they have to talk something negative about them. That is just how they roll. That is just what they do. It's obvious that people like them will never change. They're going to use their platforms for negativity because that's just who they are. Call them what you want. That's what they are. They've shown it time and time again. They've supported people that clearly are it. Like Sharon is clearly friends with Piers Morgan, who is clearly himself. Kelly Osbourne has said not so nice things about Mexicans. Things like that have always, really bothered me when people have platforms they could use good for and they choose to use it for negative. So with that said, to wrap it up, I agree with you, but that's not going to happen because the real target's always been Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.